we've got cultures going through all sorts of stuff right now. There's a return to office mandates that are happening. We've got people who are very, very in love with the idea of working from home at this point. I've been working from home since 2010. I don't know how many people know that, but I've almost always worked from home. And there's the argument that working from home kills curiosity, ingenuity, and engagement. And there's an argument that actually there's ways to explore that and create productivity even from the home office. And you, Dr. Julie Pham, help people with curiosity and bringing curiosity in the workplace. And work should be more fun, in my opinion. So I love what you do. I'm like, okay, cool. What are your thoughts on what's going on in the present world of curiosity and corporate and coaches and working from home and the whole nine yards?
I think one of the things that actually kills curiosity is problem solving. And it's because I need a solution now. And what is the outcome going to look like? And sometimes actually what we need to do is slow down and say, what is this problem teaching me? What are some questions I need to ask? I was actually just in a call this morning and we were debriefing on an event and we just started jumping to solution. Well, this is what we need to fix. This is what we need to fix. And it's like, wait. And the facilitator, I was a participant. The facilitator actually stepped back and said, okay, before we get to solutions, why don't we remind ourselves, what was the vision for the event? And so actually, I think that's one thing that really, our need for solutions hurts curiosity, and the need for a right answer. I think people are so scared of being, of offending someone, of hurting someone. Jackson, I remember once I was leading this big group session, and I was guiding people through how to ask questions, approach difficult conversations with curiosity. And at the end, this one person said, "You've taught us how to ask questions, but what I really want to know is how to answer them." And it's like, well, that's actually the question of leadership. We don't know. And so I think that's something else that hurts.
Say that again for all those who might have missed the punchline there. What is the purpose of leadership, or how did you say that?
The purpose of listens is to ask questions and to know that there is no one answer.
We don't know. Right?
We don't know. And also, Jackson, one of my favorite stats is, because when I talk about curiosity, people are just, oh yeah, don't worry, I'm curious. It's me. I'm all curious. Other people though, right? And yet, one of my favorite stats to cite is that 70% of people face obstacles to asking questions at work. 70%. And so actually think sometimes
it's an
consultants
study, because you have to be somewhat self-aware to be able to answer that.
Well, and that's another thing. I think something like most people, like 80-85%, think of themselves as self-aware, and then that same study shows under the criteria of self-awareness, only about 15% of them are. And so there's also that. There's actually, one of the things that I love looking at is that cognitive dissonance, and I can give you numerous examples of this. But I will just, since I started this thread around why are we afraid, or what are the obstacles to asking questions, I actually learned this through working with some of my clients, because I would take them through, okay, this is inquiry method. And then I would get pushback. And then they actually started sharing with me all these reasons why they can't ask questions. That became an article. I was like, oh, it's just fear of looking like you don't know, fear of looking like you weren't listening. Maybe someone talked about it already. Fear of challenging someone. Maybe there's a power dynamic. Fear of seeming passive. It's just, if you ask a question, it's like, well, you're not assertive enough. And so there are all of these things that actually get in the way. And that's why when I think about curiosity, I think a lot of people emphasize the why we should have curiosity. I actually think we all can.
Thank you, Simon Sinek. He got us all thinking about it.
Why? But the thing is, I actually think what people really struggle with is the how, and it's actually admitting when we don't want to practice curiosity. So Jackson, I've been describing curiosity. I said practice. And that's because a lot of people, when we talk about curiosity, we think about it like a trait, because Jackson, before this call, you said, I'm curious. I'm like, I'm curious too. I actually think we are all curious.
Right.
What's hard is to admit when we don't want to practice curiosity, though.
Cool. That's a really, really great point. I actually, on a more boring subject, I tie the same reality to integrity.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people say, oh, looking for somebody with integrity. I'm like, okay, everybody in the world has integrity to some degree,
Mhm.
right? And so it's a matter of like, to what level and degree do you go towards? And it's that practice aspect. Am I practicing integrity, right? Am I doing
Mhm.
things to build that within myself? Am I doing the same thing with curiosity? It's a verb.
Mhm. And actually, speaking about integrity and with curiosity, the workplace environment needs to allow for that. I mean, someone could come in with a lot of integrity, she says, "Oh, but I'm not gonna be rewarded for my integrity here."
Right. Well, I'm an
So how are they
auditor.
gonna practice it if
As a
Mhm,
marketer, revenue
mhm,
growth expert, like that's part of what I do. And I'm like the least favorite out there. And I know why, and I'm okay with it. It's because I'm willing to audit and I'm
mhm,
going to say that campaign's going to lead to X, Y, or Z, or you're doing this and it's against FCC compliance, or you're going to be doing that, but your results are, I'm willing to say all the hard truths they don't want to hear,
mhm,
which is the like it's easy to not want somebody to work with you
mhm, mhm,
when they're going to be that particular about how things go. It's much easier to just be the guy in sunglasses that stands in front of a plane you don't own and say the funnel is going to work.
mhm,
Just make it happen. But there's not a lot of integrity with
mhm,
that approach. So I love that you talked about how in workplaces we have to become aware. We have the opportunity as visionaries, as leaders, to become aware of: are we facilitating an environment where integrity is rewarded when it's difficult,
mhm,
and where curiosity is expanded upon in a safe way, and where questions are able to be asked? And I think part of that too is there's a self-training as a leader. What do I need to do to make room for those questions? And then how can I retrain or rewire my team members' brains and hearts to realize it's a safe place, even
mhm,
though the last places they were at weren't necessarily safe places to bring up the same types of realities. So
mhm. Yeah,
cool.
and if
Sweet.
there's something I like to ask is, when talking about, so the practice of curiosity, I think of it as having these 3 elements. One is self-awareness, the second is relationship building, and the third is clear communication. So that first one is, self-awareness is about how do I be curious about myself? How do I practice inward curiosity? The second one is relationship building. So how do I be curious about other people, that outward curiosity, and also how do I let them be curious about me? And which means inviting them to react to whatever I'm saying that will actually expand how I think about that. And that part is really vulnerable. So I think there are people who are just, "Oh, I've asked you all these questions." And then sometimes I've heard people, but they don't ask me questions. Like, well, sometimes you have to share to let people
Mhm.
know it's okay, especially for leaders. Well,
Oh yeah.
why aren't people asking me questions? Because there's a power dynamic, right?
Yes.
And so, but going back to that, the relationship building part, that back and forth, that's reciprocity. And you need to have that reciprocity and learning for there to be relationship building. Because sometimes I hear people say, "It's not my job to educate you. You go look it up." And it's just, well,
Good
then
luck.
my response to that is like, I'm actually not looking for education. I'm looking for engagement. And if you don't think you have anything to learn from me, then we're not going to build a relationship. Right. So that's the second element of practicing curiosity is the relationship building. And then the third element is listening to understand, asking questions when we don't understand, and then telling and giving specific examples and stories from our life. And that means not just being vague and abstract.
See,
And
I love
Jackson.
this. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Yeah,
your
yeah,
flow of
yeah.
thought.
Mhm.
You want to finish that real quick? Because
No, no, no. And I'll say something else, but please,
I thought
please.
you said a third one earlier. I
Yeah,
got the
clear
self-awareness
communication.
and
No,
relationship building. Oh, clear
clear communi-
communication. Because then
clear
you said this
communication.
understand. And I was like, that's one of my favorite lines, like
Mhm.
favorite quotes and things to think through in regards to relationships. And so clear communication
Is the third one. And then under
is the
the
third
clear
one.
communication, it's got the listening, the
So
asking, and the being specific with our stories.
question for you in regards to that. So are these linear? And that stair one has to come first, stair two has to come second, stair three has to come third. Because when I heard it, I was like, wait, wouldn't clear communication come before building relationships in order to get great relationships? But what's your
I
theory and
think
thought
of
on
it
that?
as that's a great question. I think of it as imagine I do
Triangle
think that
points?
I think self-awareness actually has to come first.
Yeah.
And then there's the relationship building part. And then the clear communication is actually under both.
Ah,
But they also feed each other, right? Because
like a
sometimes
bridge.
we only get self-awareness by sharing. Because there's only so much I know. I can ask myself all these
Right.
questions, but it's only until Jackson, I share something with you and then you react to it that I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I
Right.
hadn't
So I'm looking, I'm like,
hadn't
okay,
even thought
so
about
there's
that.
that triangular effect of, right, spiritual, mental, and physical. And there's
Mhm.
reasons why people can justify that which one, what do they call that? Um, leg of the stool, right, is the one that matters the most.
Mhm.
Right. And then there's the bridge aspect. Now I'm looking at this like a bridge because you're right. The clear communication one feeds both.
Mhm.
And so there's so many cool ways to explore this. And it's one of those topics that, like you said, if we're so hell-bent on solving the problem in the here and now, right? If
Mhm.
somebody's listening to this podcast and like, why aren't they talking about funnels yet? Okay, I'm going to pick on those people all day today, right? Or what? And I really want to just learn like the super easy solution to how this works. Like, well, you missed it. The super easy solution was hang in there with it, like play with it, practices. So, oh, this is deep.
Because we have to pause, right? Because it's just, I mean, maybe that thing worked last year and you're just, okay, well, I'm going to do that exact same thing. And the world has changed. The world has changed. So that thing that if you were just using
Oh,
the same recipe without recognizing the world has changed and you expect the same results, then you are actually, you're blind to the fact that the world has changed. And because I think context really matters. And that's another thing, Jackson, I constantly think about context, which if we think about the context, then we can appreciate things are dynamic, which means there is no right or wrong answer. And
right.
the answers are constantly changing. And so we have to even get curious about the context of, so for example, I think a lot about respect and how do we be curious about respect. What I want for respect at work is going to be different from home,
Hmm. Totally
right?
different. Totally
Totally,
different.
totally different. And I
So
actually have this.
I met with my best friend the other day, 2 days
Mhm,
ago, to reinforce your point on this.
mhm,
And he talked about like going on vacation together.
mhm.
So we're looking to do that
The two of
in
you. Mhm,
late January. And
mhm.
I told him, I was like, look, I was like, you know what? And he's like, where would you want? I was like, I don't really care where we go. I was like, I've kind of seen it all. And I'm not really big into seeing things. What I would want is if we went on vacation, you plan it all. You do all the planning. I just want to be with you when you're happy,
Mhm.
right? And I just want to enjoy the moment and find new random people. Like that's what I love to do. Everything else is just a bonus and like superfluous to it. And he's like, well, I love planning vacations. And I was like, this is perfect. Why? Because I plan everything at work.
Yes.
Right. This is what I do. Like I organize, I get things, what questions I'm going to ask, I research this and that. I do it all day long. So when I'm done with work, I'm done planning. I want to go play my guitar and just find some random song that hits me emotionally and I'm in it. So there's that separation and exploration of reality that it's okay to be different in different aspects of life. In fact, it's not just okay. That's part of the vibrant reality of a purposeful existence, in my opinion.
And actually, Jackson, what you just, because our role can actually change depending on who we're with, right? So if you are with some people, with a group of friends where you are the most organized person and you know you are going to be annoyed if it doesn't go a certain way, then you step up and you're the organizer. But if you
Mhm.
are actually with someone who's much more picky and wants certain things more than you, then like, I'm going to step back and I'll do whatever you want. And so we will step up and change it or step back depending on who we're with, and that happens at work too.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important to recognize that it's dynamic. And that, I mean, another example of right or wrong thinking, the way people think about respect is we talk about it respect versus disrespect.
Hmm.
If I don't get respect the way I want, you know what that is? That's disrespect.
Right.
Right? And then you just hear people say, "Oh, you need to respect me." And they're talking about it as if we mean as if it's fixed and universal.
We're such victims. I'm just going to say
When it's the way I think about it is more it's more relative because it's we actually Jackson, you and I want to respect one another. We know that. We can
yeah,
agree on how it feels to feel seen, heard, acknowledged. What we disagree about is, well, what does it look like to you, Jackson?
right.
Versus what does it look like to me? Do you want me to CC you on all the emails? Because if you did that to me, I'd be like, don't fill in my email box. But some people actually feel that they are not included. if you
Correct.
don't, if you take them off they were like, why did you take me off? And they take that really personally, right?
This
Mm-hmm.
book by
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Peter Drucker, The Effective Executive, one of the best books of all time for business. Thank you, Warren Buffett, for saying that. Thank you, Bill Gates, for saying that. Thank you, LeBron James, for saying that for track record purposes. It's also one of the only books I know that people don't implement after they read it. But he talks about that. And he gives a very easy recipe for how to include people, without, so they don't feel like you're forgetting them. But I love that you're adding a new dynamic onto that as well. And you're right. I have worked with executives who are like, I don't want to be included on that. And like, why are you including me on it? And that presents an entirely new, different curiosity opportunity as well. Like, all right, do you work on training that executive on being able to delegate their inbox out a little more so they don't feel that way? Or do you let it go and just not make the exception for that one person? There's so many things to explore when it comes to working relationships, dynamics, and those you listening in, I hope you have in your heart the same thing that I'm going to assume Dr. Pham and I have, which is just a love for exploring this stuff, right? Just appreciating that we don't get it. We don't know. We're trying. We're going to continue to explore it, and we get to benefit from that process, as do our team members. So before we cut for a little bit of a break, what are 3 resources, Julie, that have gotten you to where you are as a visionary leader? What things can we use to improve our own journeys?
I'll just say I really like this book called Stories That Stick. It's about storytelling and how personal knowing the story of our own company and ourselves actually helps us in health later on. There is another favorite book right now is Charles Dugan's Super Communicators. I think that's a great book about how different ways that people communicate. That's not personality styles. It's more of, it's just got lots of really great stories. And I'm also a huge fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I'm a historian by training, so anything revisionist history, the podcast, I love that because I think that's about reframing. So those are 3.
Wow. What's his podcast called?
Revisionist history.
I did not know that, and I am totally, that's huge. I accidentally read his book, Talking with Strangers. Have you read it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a mind-blowing book. I thought it was going to be a book on like communication and relationships related to business, and then found out no, this is like a world paradigm shifting book in like 4 different capacities. And that book is dark and like amazing and like dives into hope too, but like, oh my
You'll love
goodness,
his podcast.
yeah, I bet. No, anything that guy does is absolutely worth consuming because he is so good at exploring all the different angles and possibilities and research available. Like my hat is off to him all day long. So I'm really glad you mentioned Malcolm, and I'm excited to dive into that podcast. So I know you got a TEDx talk out there as well. I am committing, now that we've had this conversation as well, I am totally watching your TEDx talk after we get off, and probably for part of my Saturday fun time, I will dive into that. We're going to be right back after these messages, and we'll dive into Julie's vision of curiosity and how you can implement curiosity into your cultures. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We'll be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up? And welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I'm super excited to have Dr. Julie Pham on today because we get to talk about curiosity. And I love curiosity. I love that she talked about how it is a practice. It is not necessary. It can be a trait for sure, but we're talking about the art of being able to implement it more and more often in life. And I have found that's one of those great recipes or ingredients, rather, secret ingredients to drive more happiness and fun and self-awareness, discovery, exploration. Like, you get to enjoy life more as you dive further into the aspects of what curiosity entails. So we'll get back on that in just a minute. As we do, a couple of programs for you guys to be curious about. One of them is Oportunidades de Trabajo para Latinos. If you're curious, that is Spanish for opportunities for Latinos, spoken by a gringo who sometimes speaks okay and sometimes doesn't. My hope is that all of you will explore what we're building with opportunities, We have a version of this for India. We also have a version of this for the Philippines. And we're basically training virtual assistants, people who've never heard of the opportunity to be a virtual assistant. I'm talking about people who don't know about LinkedIn, people who don't know that Canva exists, Upwork, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Fiverr, etc. These are all new foreign materials to them. And we help them learn that there are opportunities throughout the world where they could get hired. We hire most of them within First Class Business ourselves as well. They go through a 90-day training program. If you know of a Latino, an Indian leader, or somebody from the Philippines who would love to be featured on one of those shows, what we're doing is shining the light on leaders who become inspirations, beacons of hope for the individuals who follow and have joined our program. So join us on that. And if you're into hiring VAs, know that we've learned to call that practice virtual abuse. We don't contribute to it. We don't believe in it. We want you to learn who these people are, learn how to take care of them. And what's really cool is when you take care of the people that you're working with and you take an interest in their life, they show up to play ball. They get things done really, really well. So come in and enjoy our resources. Then there's learnandgrowrich.net with Zach Ullman. Zach has become our official chief financial officer at First Class Business. I love his brand. I love what he does. We got this program called Power Launch at First Class Business. It's robust. It's crazy. It's insane. He's built like an identical version of that, but for completely different positions and resources for businesses that we don't touch. It is amazing how much we overlap and yet how our systems almost don't touch each other. So the collaboration just made a lot of sense. He also came on the show. You're welcome to check his episode out. I have been super impressed with the depth of Zach's systems. I've worked with a lot of financial, what do they call them? Fractured bones, fractional. Don't do it, guys. Work with people who actually know what they're doing and who are really dedicated to building your vision out. He's got a community of a couple hundred people. I cannot endorse Zach enough. What he's been able to drive for our business in terms of clarity in a matter of weeks after me pretty much raking him over the coals for months and months and months, seeing, is this really the guy who's going to help us drive the financial side forward? Zach's the bomb. Then there's the Water Project. The Water Project is an entity that we're not affiliated with, but I just love. I got curious about it. Speaking of, when I found the Water Project, somebody had challenged me to move my brand away from supporting a company called Operation Underground Railroad. No, I did not move away from supporting entities that help children who are facing the horrifying reality of sex trafficking. I think it's very important that we look at and that we help the areas of life that are not too comfortable to bring up. And but as this employee, this person who was working with me years ago, brought up the Water Project, I did decide to dive into it. And I began to realize that there's places in the world that don't even have access to clean sources of water. And like, there's literally millions of people out there. And I started to internalize that. I saw a picture like this. This reminds me that there's kids out there who celebrate water more than my kids even celebrate Christmas Day. And all I have to do is contribute $5 or $10 to a specific community. And I actually get to see the results of that contribution thanks to the way the Water Project does things. I get to see the sand dam that they build or the borehole well that they create. If you're in a position where financially you can't give back to this, my hope is that you'll just talk about it with some people, maybe over dinner, maybe over lunch today. Maybe you're inspired to share this with a friend. Tag that friend. Let the friend know about it. You never know how far the ripple effect of doing good will go. But we've got 8 billion people to help in this world. So if there's another cause out there that you want us to contribute to, drop the cause in the comment, share it back to us. I might even share it on the show. We always want to be doing everything we can to help out. So without further ado, we're going to get back to helping you guys on how to cultivate curiosity. This is a super, super important superpower. Let's be redundant here. For those of you visionary leaders out there who are exploring and building your visions. Julie, thanks so much for joining me on Vision Pros Live.
Thank you so much, Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. So back into the mode of curiosity. Who are we going to talk to today? We've got those who we got visionaries listening in. What is your vision for curiosity for the people that you serve? What do you want them to do with it? We've all read Curious George. Where do we go from there?
Mm-hmm. I want them to have fun at work. I want them to feel that this is a learning organization. A lot of people, when they think about education, it stops at school. Oh, I have these degrees. I have all of this. And it's just, well, actually, learning shouldn't stop at school. And we should actually invest in people. And I'm not just talking about trainings. I'm talking about just making time for continual learning and having this environment where people feel, I can admit I don't know stuff. and that there are people here in this room, my colleagues, who may know more than me about this certain thing. And they also want to learn from me about certain things. And that way there's a shift, because I think the workplace is actually, it can be very transactional and very extractive. And what I mean by that is,
absolutely,
I need someone to do this thing, and you get paid for that. And your value is right there. That's only, and it can feel extractive. My vision is, how do we create these learning organizations where people feel, I'm not just here to give my labor so I can get compensated. I'm here to learn. And also, I feel good that people want to learn from me and that we're building something together.
huge, 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 huge. I love this. I learned this the hard way. I remember hiring a few people on Fiverr and firing them pretty fast. And I remember pointing fingers at them until I finally realized that there was 3 pointing back at me. And like, no way that applies in this. No way. I went back and looked, and sure enough, I did a horrible job trying to hire the first one. It was my fault, not his. And I was like, okay. Second one was better. Third one was better, but there was something missing. And so my 4th time hiring a designer from Fiverr, I decided to ask them when their birthday was, what their favorite holiday was, and did they want to be the world's greatest designer, or did they have something else that they want to pursue in life? And this person wanted to be in AI. This is way back in like 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. They wanted to be in AI, and they loved Christmas and whatever else, and they did like the best design job ever. Just by asking those little tiny questions. But I knew, I was like, maybe if I stop treating people like a pair of shoes at Payless, maybe they'll show up and really care about doing the work with me once I actually care about them as human beings.
Yeah, and I'll just share, Jackson, my experience with Fiverr. It's taught me so much about how I communicate, because sometimes we want people to read our mind and just, magically create this thing that I have up here. Wait, have I actually articulated the vision? Have I put in examples of what I want? Have I put in examples of what I don't want? Even actually working with Fiverr has forced me to be a better communicator.
Absolutely. It's huge. And the design world has shown me exactly that. What's cool is when you find a really good designer and your designs actually start to come to life, you begin to see just how inadequate your vision is. And you're like, oh, I did explain it that way. And what the heck was I thinking? And now you go back to the drawing board.
Right. They actually followed my directions. Yes. But and then and if we actually keep this, it's all an iteration, then it's just, I think this is the way to do it, but I don't know. So let's just get to this stage and then we'll reevaluate.
It's huge. Such an awesome opportunity. So with the curiosity aspect in relation to work, I imagine that, going into, I don't know, a giant corporate funeral home operation tomorrow and be like, yeah, we're going to have fun, guys. Let's do this. If that's not the existing culture, it might not go over too well. How do you go about, I'm like super curious, what type of entities do you work with? How do you go about the process of introducing the idea or making curiosity a thing in the culture? Do you only work with companies like Google that are already ready to be curious and awesome? So just brain dump on me about this.
Yeah. So we just finished our 4th year of business. This was a learning lesson because I actually spent a lot of years in tech. And so I thought naturally, my clients will be tech. Jackson, we work with organizations that invest in relationship building.
Oh, cool.
They actually care about retention. They care about their people. And so quite honestly, a lot of tech companies, because they can pay top dollar, it is more like, I need you to do this thing. And by the way, if you can't do it, I'll get someone else to do it. And so actually a lot of our clients are government, and they're large nonprofits. Wow. And they're also more of those relationship building, in the private sector where relationship building is really important, like finance and real estate, because sometimes it's, what's the difference between this bank and that bank? It's the relationship. Yep. And so, and so those are the kinds of clients that we care about, that they actually want learning to happen. And what and they often say, "Oh, I have curiosity. I'm the CEO." It's like, I care about curiosity, or
Mhm.
it's in our mission statement. So this is resonating. And then what we have to, I think we take the word curiosity for granted.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's practice, because if you just say it's a trait, it's just like, just be curious. And then we can go from
I love
there. But
that.
if we go, no, let me talk about the times. And Jackson, can I just share an example of recently when I realized I was not practicing curiosity? It took me 6 months to get there.
Oh man, yes,
Yes,
of course.
I was having issues with this disagreement, and it was just, and I thought I was asking, why did you do that? And what I was really asking was, how could this possibly have happened when I told you not to do it?
Mm,
What I really wanted them to do was admit they were wrong. And that
mm,
is not curiosity, right? That I wanted them to admit that they were wrong. And actually, I had to move away. Once I recognized that, I was like, oh, I'm actually the person who's not practicing
wow.
curiosity here because I felt wronged.
It gives me such chills because I know as a leader, we do this all the time,
Mhm,
right? We don't mean to, but we do. And part of leadership, you're doing things that others don't do and won't do, and you're trying to attempt things that are unusual and different.
mhm,
You're gonna fail at it. You're gonna make mistakes. It's gonna happen. And so having the grace and like safety net of remembering that that's part of the curiosity factor,
mhm,
it's one of those important buoys to me of like, oh yeah, that's okay. It happens. We all, even the doctor, right? Even the doctor makes a mistake with it. I was talking to another team member yesterday about the process of growth and why we want people to fail and how important it is for our team members to see us as executives fail.
mhm,
And
mhm,
said, when I watched Tiger Woods drastically blow a putting opportunity, right? And then he went to the other side of the green and he tried the chip shot. He ruined the chip shot. It went all the way to the other side of the green. He did like 4 times in a row. I was as happy as could be watching that because I was like, oh, I do belong on a golf course. Even Tiger Woods does that.
mhm,
That's how I play golf all the time. But now I can relate. I don't feel like I'm the only idiot who doesn't know how to hit the darn ball in the little hole. So we in the workplace, if we're not willing to be vulnerable with our people, we're not willing to showcase that we have our own mistakes every day too. What type of culture are we creating? We're like, what a rigid, awkward, stuck up place. I couldn't survive in a place like that.
And yeah, actually, the easiest thing that a leader can do is be draft form in in public with their team so that they see it. I mean, that TEDx talk I did, I had 70 people give me feedback over 2 months. I had 4 open invitation, come watch me on Zoom and these different stages. And my team sees that. They see
Mm,
that I am constantly drafting,
good.
and not because I'm trying to be perfect, but more of just, oh, these little details, people hear it differently. And I actually think a lot about accessibility. I just want my work to be as accessible as
Yes,
possible. And so
exactly.
if I think people know what this word means, and then some people are coming back and they're just, I don't know what that word means. Oh,
Yep.
but I
And
can only
a lot
get
of
that
people
if
who
I
listen to
open
this
myself
show,
up for feedback.
yeah, a lot of people who listen to the show know that we're big on the pursuit of being our best,
Mhm,
right? Not being better than others, not being perfect, but I want to be my best self, right? That's what
mhm,
you're looking at, and these opportunities then become they're not a form of stress or anxiety. They're an opportunity to increase the value of what we got out of life. So I do love that you share that. Let me take you down a theory.
mhm,
So we talked about being open as executives and leaders, um, and creating a culture. I've got behind me the Patrick Lencioni's Five
mhm,
Dysfunctions of a Team poster. Huge
mhm,
fan of the idea of let's create trust, let's engage in healthy conflict, right? Let's be vulnerable, all those aspects. But when I get a back channel message from an executive who doesn't want to be called out or is worried about calling me out, right? And they're kind of putting a restraint on, no, we don't want to do things that way here. Or I don't feel comfortable if we talk about that in an open forum. How do you approach that? How do you help somebody move towards a culture where it's okay to again not have to be right?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I mean, I think one is when you can operationalize feedback, because a lot of people are, oh, we need to have feedback. It's just, all right, well, what we're going to do is after this project ends, we're going to have a debrief and say the leader goes last, and everyone has to say something affirming and something constructive. And you go around, and I actually like it when the person with the least power in the room, the intern, the most junior person, goes first. The
Yes.
contractor goes first.
Huge.
And then also I like it if I write it down and then read it out loud, because it keeps you more accountable to what you actually
Mhm.
said versus flexing to what other people say. So I think that's one tip. Something actually I've really learned recently, because sometimes I work with government, which means I also work with elected officials. And and so there's a power dynamic there. And so I learned from Port of Seattle Commissioner Ryan Culkins. He actually gives feedback in private. And the reason why is because sometimes if he gives it in public, it has this outsized perception, and so he realizes he has to give that constructive feedback privately, because then so that there's not so much noise around it. So I do think it's important that, I mean, it's a great learning opportunity to give it in a group setting, and then there are some times where you give it privately because you don't want it to be distracting. So
Yep.
again, it depends on the context. There's
I like
not a
that.
one size fits all rule.
I really like that, and I can do better on my ability to harmonize. That's what I hear. My daughter's name is Harmony for a
Mhm,
reason. It's a good
mhm,
constant reminder too to aim for it. So I like that you also mentioned something I saw that Jeff Bezos does. And same thing, he has the newest person in the meeting lead the meeting.
mhm,
And start first, and they go up in seniority from there, which allows leaders to listen more and
mhm,
allows people to bring up thoughts and ideas that they wouldn't otherwise bring up because they're intimidated by, they don't want to be wrong.
mhm,
And they want to just cater. Oh, no, what Jeff said is perfect. Let's just go with what Jeff said. Right. And it's a great way to get more people to contribute ideas that no, Jeff or Jackson or anybody else wouldn't necessarily get if we had opened our big mouths first.
mhm,
So
mhm,
that's another very helpful reality. I would love to know. I want to go into my favorite question, actually, just because
mhm.
I want to make sure we don't rush it. Julie, if this was the last chance you had to speak in public, what powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Mm. It's to admit when practicing curiosity has been hard for us and to be very specific about it.
Hmm.
And so the example that I just shared is just like, oh, that's a very specific example. Because I think I hear people who are very vague, oh, failure is good, make mistakes. And I think that is, I have, I've gotten a lot of positive reactions when people are just, oh, thank you for being real. Thank you for being real. And I'll share another thing is sometimes you just got to share what you think is important. And you don't, because I think, especially when we think about marketing, oh, is this going to hit if I say this word or if I do this? Recently, I wrote this post about sobriety. And because I just celebrated 1 year of dessert sobriety, I am
Hey.
pre-diabetic. And I was just, you know what? I cold turkey. It was just, and every month I celebrated that sobriety birthday. And I didn't know if people would think, "Oh, sugar?" Or they just like, "That's what you're talking about?" Jackson. And I was just, I'm gonna write it because I feel this. I'm proud. I just completed 12 months. I didn't think I could do this. The responses to that, people privately messaged me and told me about their own sobriety. Some people publicly. And so I think that you've got to just go, sometimes trust your instincts and say, like, this is what I want to share. I don't know what people are gonna think about it, but I feel like this is a message I have to share.
Oof, that's powerful. It's powerful. It can lead to some painful outcomes as well, right? That's part of life, right? Is a part
Mhm,
of growth. Is I think about the seed that has to break, right, in order for it to open and sprout. And it
mhm,
has to go through that dark environment, and then it comes out, and there's storms and all sorts of stuff. Like we're not going to escape the pains that can exist. I do want to highlight those realities, so maybe it will help some of you prepare for it. When I was first doing like my podcasting stuff way back in the day, going live on Facebook, a friend at the time said, "When are you going to stop with all this washed up discount Tony Robbins bullcrap?" And I was like, that was my first public comment from somebody.
mhm,
and so it ended up, I felt isolated too. It's like, oh, where is everybody? And then I also got messages privately from people, not because of that, and independent of that were like, hey, I love what you post. I'm sorry I never reach out. It's been a long time. Like, you've been a huge inspiration to me. That were like, whoa, like I made a difference in somebody's life. You never know who's going to appreciate what you're doing, but that's why I appreciate what Julie said. It's your instinct, right? Follow what you're called to do, and trust that as much negativity as may come your way, if you did what you know was best, that is going to have a brilliant and great effect for you and your life, no matter what negativity comes your way. So thank you for encouraging people to do that.
Can I share one more?
Yes, of
One
course.
more, especially because you're a marketing expert. I think you'll really appreciate this.
Yeah.
And vanity metrics. I've
Okay.
had to let go of vanity metrics
Mhm.
before. It's just, oh, how many likes? Oh, what about this? And it's just, and what I realize is, I mean, my the there are people who care about what I do, and they show up, and maybe they didn't share on social media, but then they tell me later on, Julie, I mean, I didn't react, but I sent it to 20 people, and I've been talking about it. And so I think that's something to really separate, something I've had to let go of, especially as an entrepreneur. It's just we can get
Yeah.
so, oh, what we can measure is what matters. It's like, but sometimes there are a lot of things we cannot see. I mean, I'll go back to
I
the
can't
talk.
measure the amount of blood that pumps through my heart, but I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it's important. I'm just going to
yeah,
leave that to where
yeah,
it's at. Go ahead.
yeah.
Continue.
And it's even like my TEDx talk doesn't have that many views. But you know what? I had 30 people who paid quite a bit of money on a Thursday afternoon, taking time off work, fighting traffic to attend in person.
Yeah.
I had 70 people who are like, I'm going to give my time and give you feedback. That to me, I was like, wow, people care.
They
So I
do.
think that those are the things that we just have to remember. Vanity metrics, that's, and then what actually matters.
Is it what actually matters? I think is the big key on that. For all you listeners, that's what I hope you catch about this is the metrics matter, and there's a context for where they matter and how they matter and why, right? And if I look above my head right here, there's an eyeball, and that eyeball shows a giant zero next to it, which means that so theoretically nobody is listening and nobody is here, right? And I have seen that proven wrong over and over and over based on what happens both live and what happens in the world. I mean, we're in the top 5% of podcasts globally now. And again, vanity metric, right? Does that mean anything to anybody? Maybe, but not. It's important. I'm grateful for it. But what I'm most grateful for is I'm going to get up. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to show up for the people who I show up for. I'm going to give my absolute best. And the byproduct of doing that is already guaranteed. Why? Because I trust in the law of principles, right? I trust in the law of attraction. I trust in the law of the harvest. I know that great things come from it. It's what most of the greatest leaders in this world talk about. And so that's what we stick to. So these are super powerful lessons. And I want to circle back again to what you said about curiosity and how you said admit when curiosity has been hard for us and to be specific about it. What a great framework as leaders, like to be able to open up a safe space for people to then dive deeper into curiosity. Um, it's just brilliant. You shared so much brilliant wisdom today, Julie, that I'm almost not podcasting today. I'm almost just like eating this up as a personal coaching session. And so those of you listening, I hope you're getting the same thing out of this. In the show notes, of course, below the episode, we'll have action steps so you can get in contact with Julie. You can find out about her book. We'll have the TED Talk on there too, so you can go watch that. Maybe you're one of the lucky out of the 2,000, right? Or the 20,000 beyond that aren't counted. The key that I've found with Dr. Julie today is that she's going to show up and give her maximum value. And we live in a world where curiosity is suffocating, where people aren't able to dive into it, where they don't appreciate it, where they see it as something that's weird or strange rather than individualized appreciation for maximizing what's possible in life. So Julie, thank you for everything that you're doing, everything that you gave us today. I am going to be an avid follower of what you're up to. Any final thoughts you want to share with the audience?
Jackson, I just really appreciate what you're doing, and thank you so much for creating this space for people to learn.
Absolutely. Vision Pros, if you got thoughts and curiosity, send them our way. We're eager students of the process as well. If you have a company that's looking to incorporate results, by the way, if you have a company that's looking to incorporate results, one of the greatest ways to do that, in my opinion, is exploring curiosity with Julie. You probably already have all of the answers within you for what needs to be done. But what you need are people who can help you get back to centered on exploring those. And I can see that Julie's very good at that. She already did that for me in big ways in this lesson, in this episode, in ways that you guys won't even know about, but my team will very soon. We're going to have some very fun talks about this. Vision Pros, have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building